welcome to Indiecent, the podcast in which we play video games. I am Lamar the Frog. Joining me here is Darkside.
Hello.
And Elmo 3000.
I finished Sonic Heroes.
Oh yeah!
Now I don't have to play it ever again.
Until the next time. And the next time.
What did you think of the final boss song?
It was just as good as the rest of the game.
Okay, I'll give you that because it's terrible in a good way.
This hidden shade. Today, for the podcast, we played a game called Shrouded In Sanity. An
Personal
indie game
responsibility.
mainly based off of personal responsibility.
Yeah.
An indie game based, sort of just a bit of a 16-bit demake of Bloodborne Soul-style games, also with a beat-em-up perspective kind of way to do it. And now we open the floor to discuss it.
Yeah, this is an interesting pick.
That's about it. I liked it.
I liked it.
Yeah, I liked it, but I didn't get enough time to play it as much as I wanted to because life was like, no, you're not going to allow me to have fun.
Still, I've seen your Steam amount, and it's a pretty good amount to talk about it, but it's pretty straightforward. I guess for the basic story of it, you are woken up, sign a contract to discover the source of a fog that is covering the entire town. There may be some Lovecraftian things going on, and by maybe, I mean there are tentacles coming out of the ground, so, you know. And your goal is to fight several bosses and find the cause of the fog and stop it.
I like how the weird guy, he brings you back to life and he says, will you accept my contract and undergo this mission? And you have the option to just go, no, and the game just ends.
Yep.
It's like, okay, well,
that shit.
that's...
Was it
Matrix
Golden
Path
Sun,
and
where
Neo
if
did
you...
it first.
Was it Golden Sun, where if it's like, will you accept this journey, and you hit no like 100 times, they're like, okay, well fine, fuck you. The game just ends.
I just remembered a lot of people I knew at the time were really mad at Path and Neo because when you pick the blue pill, it just ends instead of doing a new story.
That's funny. Anyway, but yeah, I guess one thing I was surprised by is I actually tried both control schemes for this game just because, I mean, among initially starting this, basically the game does have controller support and it also is just mainly keyboard controls for the whole thing. It's sort of like a beat 'em up if you've played like Turtles in Time or something, that kind of perspective, but enemies hit a lot harder and you have to make much more use of dodge rolls, invincibility frames, and things like that. So I tried both control schemes for this. First, originally I was just going, alright, I'm just going to have a controller, this will be so much easier, and I actually ended up using the keyboard controls a lot more.
Wow.
It's the kind of thing where this game pretty clearly, from like the font, a lot of the aesthetic of it, and a lot of the art design, you can very much tell it is influenced by Bloodborne, and a lot of the control scheme for it is basically Bloodborne except mapped into this different perspective, which is cool in that I know where everything is and what everything does, but then you have the issue where it doesn't really necessarily work from this perspective, so I actually found the keyboard controls a little better, even though they were a little awkward at first.
No, I just went with the keyboard controls because the only time I bother trying to get a PS2 controller working on this computer is when I'm emulating a game. Otherwise, it's not worth the effort to me.
Yeah, messing with drivers is a pain.
I used a controller because I am contrarian.
Nice.
But yeah,
it
worked well there too, so...
Yeah,
I remember you mentioned in our chat that you didn't realize there was a run button until later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Halfway
Even
through
I knew
the
that,
New
but I
Game
don't
Plus, I'm like, there's a run. I don't think I even realised it by playing. I was watching the trailer after I finished it, and I was like, why is he running? Is that some kind of weird glitch?
I never bothered using the run button except dash back after a death to an area because it eats up stamina, and I hate stamina meters so much.
Yeah.
I can't even begin to describe the hate.
So let me tell you about Dark Souls. But
yeah, I know. Pretty much everything here is from like Dark Souls and Bloodborne. Even I have never played any of those games, and even I could see from the first screen, oh, this is literally just Bloodborne and Dark Souls.
Yeah, I haven't
very
played
much
any
wears
of
its
those
influences on its sleeve. I cannot speak.
Oh.
But Yeah, it was interesting to kind of see how that control scheme sort of switches into this kind of game. What I found really interesting was the entire time I played it, I kept thinking of a different, similar, like, 16-bit demake project, which is a game called Lone Survivor.
Oh, I played a bit of that. And I got stuck on one map because I forgot where everything is because it's mapped kind of badly, and I just stopped and I need to go back to it.
The 2D plane with 3D, well, not 3D, but like overhead map doesn't really work for that game. But the funny thing is, Lone Survivor is very much based off of Silent Hill, and it's another game that very much wears its influence on its sleeve to the point of having the same exact like menu sounds as Silent Hill in some places. To the point it actually distracts me a bit. For Shrouded in Sanity, I can happily say that it, as much as I could see the influence all over the place, it did not feel solely like it was aping too much.
I do think it has a similar design to it, though, because it's hard as hell, but in a way that feels fair. Like, even if you fail at something, you figure out very quickly what you did wrong. You can learn from it. Like, when I started playing, I had trouble with the maids of all things at first, who are, by the way, cute. I wish would step on my face. Don't judge me. But eventually I figured out a way to fight them without having to dodge or dodge roll, so I could save my stamina. I figured out how far their attack reaches and the best time to hit them without opening myself up for one of their attacks, and that felt good. And the gun,
you read.
Oh, and the gunmen are just pussies.
Yeah. They can just only aim in a straight line, so you just move down.
That was one of the bosses. One of the bosses is like basically an upgraded version of one of the gun guys, and that was one of the ones I tried to go for first, and then actually ended up tackling last.
Yeah, I saw some gameplay of him. He has like bombs and other stuff.
Yeah,
I think
has
it's just
that weird sniper attack.
Yep, I was gonna say he has one form where he busts out like a sniper rifle scope that you kind of have to have like pin perfect dodge timing to get away from, and luckily it's not an instant kill or anything, but it does a chunk of damage while there are also enemies spawned while fighting, and it's like, well, this is fun.
Yeah,
and while we're talking about this, I'm going to look up the developers real quick and see what else they've done.
Yeah, I think this game was only designed and made by like one person.
I'm pretty sure. It definitely, like, you can tell there are some places where it's stitched together. Like if you pick up some stuff like the text, you have to advance on your own, even if the everything else starts moving, or there's a couple typos and stuff in it. But that much I can forgive for what the game actually pulls off very well.
And it is on the small side, I felt. So yeah, that would make sense and explain why it's so limited in scope.
Yep. One thing that I found kind of funny is on the Steam page for it, it mentions Resident Evil as one of the influences, and I could totally see it playing through this game, because, I mean, for one, it takes place all in one mansion and everything, but the way you can kind of dart past enemies with the run or the dodge, or, lifting some stuff from Soulsborne games that you don't actually need to fight everything if you want to, because, like, there was a span of time where a lot of the upgrade stones you get are just dropped by sometimes average enemies, but mainly by the butlers who run around and throw daggers and shoot fire and everything. So I would kind of just go on butler hunt mode, because your inventory will stick with you. Meanwhile, your upgrade points kind of disappear when you die, but you can retrieve them. So I'd kind of go on like these suicide missions, run out, try to get as many butlers as possible to get as many upgrade stones as fast as possible.
Oh, the butler guys are the ones with the lanterns that are basically Dio, right?
Yep. They do the knife throw.
I don't like them.
They teleport and slam down. I got their pattern down pretty... the first couple times I fought them, especially when they do their very quick knife attack, I had some trouble with them. But it's another thing where once you get the pattern down, I was just like plowing through them somehow. The guys I hate are... one thing that I found interesting with this game is it definitely has the sort of Lovecraftian falling into insanity kind of thing.
I saw a lot of Eternal Darkness in it.
Yep.
In a good way. That's a really great game.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I wasn't sure if it was set to a timer or if it was based on like your actions or upgrades and everything, but seeing sort of familiar enemies take on different, more gradually like corrupted, fucked up, and also more difficult forms as you play through was actually really cool, because I remember like one of the biggest surprises I got was I was kind of like throwing myself at one boss over and over and over again like an idiot before trying to like search around for other parts of the house. And suddenly in one area where I went to, there's this giant like floating orb sticking out of the ground, and I'm like, what's this thing?
For me, it was a tentacle woman appearing out of nowhere.
Oh yeah, those ones you can actually cheese a bit because they like to do the thing where they spawn the tentacles on the ground, and you can just basically keep wailing on them.
Yeah.
It's a funny time. But I've been talking a bunch. Other folks, let's go.
I gotta say, I
Okay.
like how the difficulty is designed, and with the small house and all that. Like, a big problem I have with a lot of hard games is that they constantly waste your time by making these large, expansive areas or worlds or really long levels. So when you lose or fail, you have to start all over again, or at some point, and waste more of your time over and over and over. Like, this game doesn't waste your time. It has one central area. You can go anywhere you want at any time. There's like maybe a few keys here and there, and you can figure out how each area works pretty quickly and get better at handling it until the madness stuff kicks in. But I actually like that because it just throws in an extra element that keeps you on your toes, keeps it from being boring.
Definitely. It's a nice little curveball you kind of see as you're going through, because once you get the hang of like, okay, I know how to competently like handle myself, take on these enemies and things like that, it throws a wrench in your plans. It's like, all right, you learned, now learn again.
The moveset's
really
also
cool.
pretty cool. I mean, I thought the heavy attack was useless at first, but if you know when to use it, it's really useful.
Oh.
Every single boss fight, I would start by standing out of range of them and hitting them with it twice, then advancing the dialogue, then running away. Every single time.
I feel like I've missed out now because I have a list of all the things you could do in the game that I never really used. Like,
Really? Were you mainly just doing quick attacks, or?
Yeah, I don't think I ever did a heavy attack on a boss.
Oh damn.
Yeah.
That's understandable because they feel so awkward and
Yeah.
slow that you can't really
Yeah.
think. They don't really feel natural to use.
Then I also never blocked or parried or ran or used the gun because you have a gun as well.
Parrying, I
si-
tried. Blocking and parrying, I tried, and I found dodging to be much more effective
Yeah.
for me personally.
It
I
takes
found a
about
lot
the
of
same
tank.
stamina.
I did find
Yeah.
a lot of use out of blocking, but parrying wasn't worth the effort.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the kind of thing where with because I mean, drawing comparisons to Bloodborne is kind of a given with this game, but with Bloodborne, it's often done with the gun, and parrying is a big way to kind of open things up, which is actually where I think this handled it a lot better. I think the blocking element might have been a bit misplaced because I don't think it's useful enough a lot of the time. Then again, I never really took the time to get good at parrying. Maybe there's people who have gotten ridiculously good at it, but I never personally found it to be that useful.
Yeah.
The gun actually would be a nice kind of there's one boss that as you're fighting it, it's kind of like a white-haired anime guy with sword who as the fight goes on, clones of him start appearing, and what could actually work for some of them is if you got them lined up and used the gunshots, you could either get them into the riposte, stab after shoot at right time kind of thing for them, and also deal a lot of damage to them at once. So there's like these kind of, it's the neat thing where it's got a very basic core mechanic set, but has enough complexity going on that you can really finagle your way around a lot of situations.
And it's a good thing too because there is not actually a lot in this game once you get past how the mechanics work. I mean, like
Fair.
the mansion's good size, but there's not that much enemy variety until the madness kicks in. The bosses,
And even then, it's a lot of upgraded versions of previous enemies.
yeah, and all the bosses are basically upgraded versions of enemies too.
Yeah.
Not necessarily.
Even the final boss has like the same fire attack the butlers have, except
That's
it just
true.
spawns randomly.
Mhm.
Yeah, like it.
Okay.
Like the game has a good style, but it doesn't have enough variety in that style. I mean, after you've gotten past the early maids and butlers,
Yeah, I feel like kind of I can only speak for myself on this, but I kind of reached a point where once I kind of had my character set, like where I was able to have my guy upgraded to a level with like enough health or enough damage upgrades, which I actually did not find until very late in the game. Yeah. So that led to some, let's say, difficulties with a couple bosses. But in doing that, I found it to be a lot easier once getting sort of where I wanted to be, which I think is kind of part of the idea of it. I'm just a little curious of, if it's really viable to play the game without doing that upgrade. Probably not, but who knows?
Yeah, I tried it on New Game Plus, and right before you try it, you get all of these warnings about how it's going to be incredibly difficult and all the enemies are much harder. And
then you can breeze through them.
Yeah, all of the bosses are in the exact same place. All of the butlers who have keys are in the exact same place, and you start with all of the power-ups you got from your last
one.
Hit
any? Do they hit any harder?
I don't think the bosses do. The enemies do, but I only killed about one of them in a New Game Plus, and that was just a butler who was holding a key.
The funny thing that happened to me was with this is more a Dark Souls thing than this game, but with playing through Dark Souls when they had the New Game Plus and that, it's like you can keep all your stuff and all your stats and your character and everything, but the game's going to be so much harder, and it was not actually that much harder.
Yeah.
It was a lot easier, actually. So I think that might have been a carryover. Also, one Easter egg that I will forever appreciate with this game is after you beat it, letting you play through the game as the bosses. That was hilarious. It's just this funny thing where I went to some things that were giving me trouble at first, and it was just like, all right, let's just spam like crazy and win.
How does that gun boss control?
I didn't try him. I tried the second knight, the one who has the big katana with like the black streaks.
Oh, the nerd.
Yeah. What's nice though is this is the point I put towards the Soulsborne series, but with a lot of the bosses, despite the fact that they have like bigger health and attacks, they kind of play by the same rules you do, which you definitely see when playing as them, because even though they're a lot more like souped up and powerful, the movesets they have aren't impossible, but like with the exception of the one boss that has an instant kill, that's kind of frustrating.
I like the boss battles a lot because I like the boss battles a lot because they remind me of like the Virgil battles in Devil May Cry 3. It's just two people on very equal footing, but one of them has a shit ton of health and will wreck you if you make a single mistake.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really challenging and rewarding to get through.
Absolutely.
Unlike what I've seen from Souls bosses who are just murder machines that have very obvious patterns, but you have to learn the patterns first, or else they're just murder machines.
I think my favorite Souls story ever is, as much as I love Dark Souls, and it's one of my favorite games, that game is like barely stitched together. And there are certain sections where that kind of shows, where I've got a friend who's playing through it right now, and the Capra Demon fight in Dark Souls is often cited as probably the worst, like the second worst designed part of that game. I managed to beat it on my first try by pure luck, because there's one dodge roll where if you don't get it like perfect the first time, you just basically die.
The first night is a lot like that, but it's just like, oh hey, why is the Grim Reaper? Oh, I'm dead.
Oh, I'm dead. I tried to get like a count on that where I'd be like, oh, all right, after 4 seconds, I'm just going to keep hitting the space bar to just roll out of the way, hopefully. So that was a little frustrating. I think it kind of hits this weird difficulty curve where once you kind of get too souped up, you can really wreck through everything. And I mean, I think that's kind of going to happen with the open kind of level design where you can just go wherever you want. But that could be a little underwhelming, where there's not really as much of a progression. Maybe there were like 2 open-ended areas and everything, but then again, it's a smaller project by one guy, so I'm not necessarily trying to expect the world. I think they delivered well on what they did.
Oh yeah, for a single-person project, this is kind of incredible.
Yeah, definitely.
I've actually played another single-person project a few months back called Indiecent. It's this really beautifully animated sprite game that's trying to be Castlevania, but it's way more boring than this one because the guy just made a very small, very barren Castlevania, and I didn't care, and I haven't touched it again since, even though I'm supposed to do an article on it.
Ah. What a
Yeah,
shame.
Yeah.
I did not have the same problem with this one. I just couldn't play it more because life got in the way, but I do want to go back to it and try beating it. I like the difficulty curve, and I really like the mechanics and how it all works. I also like that it doesn't hold your hand and lets you figure out a lot of this stuff. But it's
Yep.
like manageable to do.
Yeah. If I can beat it, anyone can beat it.
Put
You
it on
know.
the back of the box.
Yeah.
Here we go. I just find it interesting for both of you because, I mean, I guess the three of us, well, we kind of come from different perspectives with this, where I've played Dark Souls, Demon Souls, and a little bit of Bloodborne, but neither of you have played either. So I guess what was kind of your response to a lot of that kind of difficulty if it wasn't something you were exposed to yet?
Actually, I kind of am because as I mentioned, I've played Devil May Cry 3 and I played God Hand, two of the best games Clover Studios ever made. I mean,
Rest in peace.
Capcom
Yeah.
ever made. A Devil May Cry 3 had involvement from some people related to Clover, sort of, kind of.
Mhm.
But yeah, those games, I adore them. They really understand how to use difficulty and making you feel very powerful initially with a very basic move set, and then throwing a shit ton of enemies at you that wreck you if you don't know how to use that move set. And once you figure out how to use it, it becomes really rewarding and fun, and you can just completely destroy all these things that were getting in your path, and it doesn't really heavily involve an upgrade system to do it. I got kind of the same vibe here. It's just about learning how the enemies move and think and fighting on their level.
Nice.
And I also think they may have gotten the idea for the parry system from Metal Gear Rising because nobody knew how to use that fucking system there, apparently.
Well, you see, with Metal Gear Rising, the thing there is the parry system itself isn't necessarily in of itself bad. The problem is, in Metal Gear Rising, it's explained in the worst possible way.
Yeah, honestly,
They
that seems like something you would see from Platinum Games or Clover.
Yeah, pretty much. Like,
they don't
I think the
explain.
exact line they use for it is they're like, attack in the direction of the enemy, and in order at the same time in order to parry them. What they should have told you, either through like, I don't know, like a text thing at the bottom or whatever, is point the analog stick at them while they're attacking at the same time, and then you parry them. So I know a lot, like I knew this going into it because people told me, but I heard a lot of people who went into it and got to the really hard parts of Metal Gear Rising getting really frustrated because they didn't know how to parry.
I remember there
the
was a
game
lot
does a
of
very bad job of
angry
it.
YouTube gamers when that game came out.
Which is a shame because Metal Gear Rising is fucking beautiful.
I normally don't go with the get good crowd, but for Platinum Games, I'll make an exception.
I
The
haven't
get
really,
good thing is always. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I haven't really played any Dark Souls, and not only that, I haven't really played any games before that are kind of like Dark Souls. So this was a pretty new one for me, but this was a good game to get a kind of learning curve on.
Nice.
And once
I'm
you
glad to hear that it
do
carried over pretty well.
once you do level up a bit, it is. I really don't want to sound like I'm trying to like backhandedly brag, but when you walk into a boss room, you can't leave, and it's really awkward talking about the nights because their official names are like the first night, the second night, the third night, and the fourth night. But I fought the third night first, and the first night second, and the fourth night
Oh,
third,
God.
and the second night fourth.
I'm just trying to keep track of this now.
Yeah.
It's confusing enough
Yeah.
having played it. I can only imagine how people at home feel.
But yeah, once you're kind of powered up, since I thought the first night is the I don't want to say horrible because every kind of Dark Souls-ish game needs a boss that makes you want to cry.
But that's the one-hit kill one.
That's the one
right?
hit kill one. After
Oh,
getting
Oh
through,
god, that's the one
yeah.
I ended up fighting.
Oh,
That's the one I
God.
fought last.
I thought its second. It was annoying but kind of bearable. But yeah, the second and fourth nights. By the time I got through to them, I was leveled up enough that, again, not trying to backhandedly boast, I beat them on my first go without actually realizing that one of them was a boss fight.
Oh, nice.
I just kind of went, oh hey, this guy's got
There you go.
dialogue. Oh, oh really? Oh, okay.
telling me off. Let's
Yeah.
fucking stab him.
The guy,
Let's go.
the guy with the clones. Like, I've seen a lot of games where they have a boss, and once he takes a lot of damage, he summons a clone to fight with him. I haven't seen any of those games where if you attack the clone, it does damage to the boss as well. So, if anything, it made it a little bit easier.
Oh yeah, if you got them all lined up correctly, you
Yeah.
can kind of just get like. Eventually, they get a third one as well, so you
Yeah.
can just like slash them all at the same time. Unfortunately, in some places, this game did inherit the beat 'em up problem of being unable to tell where you align, like line-wise with people.
Oh,
but
absolutely.
eventually, that was one that I kind of figured out. But I feel like that was something that probably could have been communicated a little better. I don't really have an idea how. Well, usually the way they do it in these kind of games is have kind of like a shadow underneath, so you can kind of tell where you line up and everything. But that definitely took some getting used to.
Yeah, I've always had a problem with this sort of 2D beat 'em up setup because it's just always been so hard for me to tell where I can hit. Even in like 3D graphics ones, like the one that Tekken 3 had, it took me forever to figure out how the hell that worked. Though, of course, it didn't help. I used Gone every time because I always wanted to play as the farting dinosaur.
Jesus.
Who
He's
would?
so small, it's just hard to figure out. Did you know that?
But yeah, I
did
think
you
it
know
could-
Gon the farting dinosaur was actually from a manga and was a guest character?
Oh my god. They gave this thing its own series?
No, it had its own series before Tekken 3. It was a guest character in Tekken 3.
Oh wow.
Oh my god.
Just like Soul Calibur 2 and all the future ones had like Star Wars characters and Heihachi and Link and all that.
Video games are a wild ride. That's their slogan on this show.
Yeah.
Video games are a wild ride.
Mr. Bones Wild Ride.
There it is.
There it is.
I'm trying
You
to
think?
I'm trying to think of what about this game didn't gel with me. Besides like the beat 'em up thing. I guess maybe the keyboard controls because they don't feel that natural the way they're laid out. I would have liked it if I could have done a custom mapping.
Yeah, that was a thing that I absolutely. I don't mean to harp on this too much, but I feel like most games should have some kind of button remapping. It's like for this one especially, because basically the way for people at home, the way the buttons are laid out is WASD is move, space is roll out of the way, and then on the number pad, so on the right hand side of the keyboard, so like the numpad on the right. 4, 5, and 6 are light attack, gun, and guard, and then 1 is heavy attack. And in the heat of the moment, it's very easy to kind of get your hand mismatched where you're supposed to be.
Plus, they're using the goddamn numpad. No one uses the numpad in this age.
That surprised me. That was why I was originally trying to go for controller, but I actually ended up liking the numpad more. It was a weird thing to get used to. It's... I don't know. I didn't have too much trouble with it, but the fact that it was something to have to get used to is definitely a knock against it.
I'm glad I stuck with the controller, I think.
I kind of
Yeah.
wish there was more to the story, because like a big draw with all the Souls games is this complicated lore you can discover and all these deep themes and ideas, like how Bloodborne, the best ending has you turn into a tentacle monster, and because now you're an old one.
See, they know what the best endings are like.
But
They know that's what you want.
But in this game, I think it's okay to get into spoilers because the story really doesn't matter for this at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very bare bones. It's basically just people were orchestrating sacrifices in order to summon great old ones and everything, and then shit went tits up.
And like you got betrayed by your brother or something, and now he's the king, and bad things are happening. So,
hmm
like,
and
you
your
have to,
grave was dug up to fight
Yeah.
and find the source of the fog, which you probably called as soon as you saw Cthulhu tentacles everywhere. But it's kind of hard. I don't want to harp on the story too much because I don't feel like that was a big focus, but it did definitely feel very underdeveloped.
yeah,
And if
especially the
there's-
knights. They didn't feel like
Yeah,
characters at all.
Yeah, they kind of just show up and have like a text of dialogue where they're like, "Hey, fuck you, let's fight."
And if you like spare them
So-
at the end, they just try to say sorry and like, I don't blame your brother.
Yeah.
That's it.
Fall
Yeah.
down, pretty much.
You don't
don't
really
get
get
much
a connection to your
no,
character.
I'm just sitting here like
the
no, I'm
lore's
just sitting
not
here like a
explored.
dumbass. No, I'm just sitting here like a dumbass thinking, wait, you can spare them?
I
Yeah, you
did
can
not
spare
spare
them.
any on my first go because, like, if you get to at the end of a boss fight and the boss is injured and they fall down and go, ugh, that's kind of your cue to finish them off.
I know.
It's
The
like-
best ending. You can only get the best ending if you spare them and
Yeah.
then kill your brother. I think.
Yeah.
Because
enjoy
if you let your
killing
brother
Snake.
live, the fall
Yeah.
comes. But if he dies and they're still around, you get to be
Yeah.
the king again.
Even though there are 4 endings, you really only need, I think, 2 playthroughs because it's like, kill your brother, kill the knights, kill your brother, spare the knights, spare the knights, spare your brother, spare the knights. I don't know. I've already forgotten the 3 that I've said, but the one I didn't say is the 4th one.
Is the last one. You can imagine a square. You can imagine like a Punnett square for this.
Yeah.
And
But it's just because there's a save point right in front of the final boss. So, however you've
I
played the
noticed that.
game, go into the final boss, kill him, then spare him, whatever, and then
Pretty much.
you've already got 2 of the endings, and
Yep.
and the new game plus isn't, like I said, if you know where the bosses are, it's just kill the bosses, then kill the final boss
or if
again.
you play as one of the bosses.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
That was still such a hilarious Easter
I
egg.
noticed we haven't talked about the game's production because that was really impressive to me.
Oh yeah.
As a
Mainly
really,
that, did you look up some stuff for it? Or
Oh, there's not much to look up. It really was made just by one guy.
nice. I mean, that's awesome.
Like,
Even though we've given a few criticisms for it, I definitely think overall I definitely enjoyed it, and I think it succeeded.
yeah, the music. I really like the music. It's very almost non-existent, but when it pops up, it catches your attention. It really builds the mood well, and I really like the boss battle music. It sounds very sad and melancholy, which I think fits the game.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's often very subdued. It's usually not like a very like bombastic kind of thing. It's a much more
Yeah, it's not like in,
downplayed kind of tone.
Yeah, it's not like in Dark Souls where random people you don't see are constantly screaming like in a deep baritone. Oh.
To be fair, the last boss fight of Dark Souls is all piano based.
And oh yeah, wasn't the last boss of Dark Souls just an old guy?
Yep. I mean, there's a very big lore thing behind him.
Oh,
but I'm not
I
gonna
get it. I'm
If we're gonna talk Dark Souls lore, then this whole thing will be like 3 hours.
Okay.
Let's not do that.
Anyways, I also really love the graphics, especially the lighting. God, the lighting
same.
effects are gorgeous in this game.
Yeah, it does a really good job of having kind of like the 16-bit pixel art kind of base for it, but then expanding on it with some more modern kind of stuff. And I think this was all... Actually, no, I don't think. I know this was all done in Game Maker, which is pretty nice.
Yeah, I played a game with a similar art style to this a while back called The Count Lucanor, and I'd highly recommend it. I might recommend it for an episode one day. It has these gorgeous anime-style cutscene graphics done entirely in pixel, like it's some lost game from the PC 98. But then you get to the main gameplay, and it has very generic sprites like you see in like any generic indie game you'd find on an iPhone or something. But it made up for it with a lot of great lighting and atmosphere in the areas. So it's kind of like give and take. With this one, it was just aces all around. They got it from the first screen.
Definitely. I also like that the flashlight actually changed up the environments a whole lot, where you could definitely tell a lot of effort went into kind of making sure the lighting would look appropriate in all these different contexts and everything.
Oh yeah, if the flashlight wasn't in this game, I'd probably hate it. God, it is so fucking dark sometimes without that thing.
Absolutely. Almost as dark as Souls.
No.
I had to. It was right there.
Almost as blood is born.
Would you say that this game is the Dark Souls of Turtles in Time?
Would you say Sonic Heroes is the Dark Souls of Sonic 06?
No, that's Shadow the Hedgehog. Jokes. Also, I should point out for people at home that while we keep saying beat 'em up style kind of things, it's not like you run down a hallway and hit people in like a single file line and tons of enemies come up you can take out. This is the kind of game where one enemy can be manageable and 3 enemies is like, holy shit, I need to get the fuck out of here.
Oh yeah, the minute I fought a maid and a butler at the same time, I ran the fuck out of there.
Yep.
There's nothing
God,
like trying to figure out how to dodge through a wall of flames while a crazy maid lady is trying to axe you.
How did you feel the first time an enemy was near you and you tried to run away and you got the little text display come up that says enemy too close?
That never happened to me.
I was upset.
Oh no, wait, that
probably
did happen
died.
to me. I remember now. I couldn't leave the area.
Then die and pick up the thing.
I think a good intro to like the game's difficulty is, I'm not sure if you would remember the specific number, but how many times do you think you died on the tutorial?
A couple.
Yeah.
Same.
It's actually funny. Before
Oh god, the dodge roll
when
was
I
so
when I picked this game, I thought it was kind of going to be like a little bit of a streamlined kind of Soulsborne kind of thing, and then had to have a few very nervous conversations where I'm like, okay, so I just played like 20 minutes of it, and this is going balls to the walls. Is everyone sure they want to play this? You have no experience with this, but luckily it sounds like the two of you enjoyed it. So
Don't worry, dude. I've beaten God Hand at least 3 times now. I'm used to it.
Yeah, and I'm friends with someone who's beaten God Hand like 3 times, so I know I can do this.
Let me
that's all
tell
it
you,
takes.
don't play that game on hard. You will not like the game anymore.
Also, don't play Metal Gear Rising on Revengeance mode because you won't like that game anymore.
Another tip. In God Hand, no matter what difficulty you picked, when you're in one of the final few areas and you're in that one room where like 8 different enemies are trying to constantly murder you, just keep running in circles and charging into them as soon as the thing charges up, and keep doing that for like an hour, and eventually you'll win and you can continue on and you won't be angry.
Yeah.
God, fuck
Also,
that
jumping
area.
back. Also, jumping back to Shrouded in Sanity for a bit, one thing I just noticed with that conversation, actually, is this got the very smart thing that a lot of survival horror games really do, where you've kind of constantly got something draining that you need to keep track of, whether it's like, whether it's lamp oil, or you're running out of syringes, or time is coming up, or you're trying to search through this area, or running out of health, or you're constantly running out of something. You need to keep, like, attentive and make sure you're not just running like an idiot into scenarios where there's like 4 dudes with guns and a Cthulhu monster. So
Yeah, the minute a butler shows up, you're gonna lose at least one thing.
yeah,
But then the butlers drop. I don't know how to pronounce some of the stuff in this game because it's YTH ETH stones.
the Elder Tongue.
And those combined with the, I don't want to say Vita, because I don't know any good PS Vita games, but Vitae?
In Rompa.
Vitae.
Oh, actually,
I was saying Vitae, and
Actually-
that's only
there's
because
a
I
good
played
Vita game,
Empire the Masquerade.
Valkyrie Drive, because lesbians.
I forgot about Tearaway as well.
I hear Tearaway's good. The Vita, this is a different topic, but I find it so sad how mistreated the Vita has been.
Yeah, it has a lot of good games, but at the same time, it's the Vita, so
They're kind of just dropping it and pretending it doesn't exist, but it has become
Vita
the Wii
game
machine.
of the year.
Best Vita game. It has become the Weeb machine. If it fulfills place in the market, hey, that's fine. If
Actually,
people enjoy it, that's
you could say
awesome.
the same thing with the 3DS. It's like the handheld market's finally dying because phones are here and they're never leaving.
Yeah, but what will the NX be? Tell us, Nintendo. Maybe someday, please. You have don't you have like a March release date? You should probably say some stuff about it. It's kind of coming up soon, guys.
It's kind of interesting how much online distribution has impacted all the niche genres that used to be on handhelds everywhere. Because now they're
Absolutely.
just coming to PC. And weirdly enough, most of the RPGs, the JRPGs, classic style ones, are all just porn games now because that's the easiest one to program for them.
Oops.
And like
No,
most
it's
of them are
definitely-
terrible, but some of them are actually kind of clever. Like I found one where there are moments where you have like in a torture battle where you're trying to just survive the situation by building up your will or insulting your tormentors in a way that gets them to stop faster, and I thought that was actually kind of clever.
Oh my god, it's the sword fights from Monkey Island, except with porn.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my god, video games are video games.
That's what Shrouded in Sanity needed. Some dialogue options. References to
There we
dairy
go.
farmers.
Dialogue option: save the children, murder
Why
all
couldn't
of the
you-
children.
Why couldn't you talk to the Cthulhu monster?
Yeah.
What?
Actually, that would have been kind of cool, and then you could date them.
Oh my god.
Oh god, I just remembered a manga someone showed me of like a kid ending up dating like a Lovecraftian old one who takes the shape of a hot woman.
I feel like I've heard of this somewhere.
Actually, I think I described like 5 different manga I've seen.
Only 5?
I kind of get why Japan does it though, because God, Lovecraft sure did hated him some Japanese.
Yeah, Lovecraft is... well, let's not get into it, but Lovecraft wasn't exactly the best of people.
Oh.
But all this stuff is in the public domain now, which means people can make a lot of media about it.
Way
At least I don't think he did it. I don't think he invented Narlithatip, and like everyone else just went wild with that. But then in old Narth, he was
Narlhotep?
kind of super racist in
Oops.
his design because he was like always appeared as as an evil black man.
God, one thing that was so awkward was I've DM'd, well, technically GM'd, whatever. I've DM'd Call of Cthulhu before, and in the rulebook they have the original Call of Cthulhu story, which I'd read before, but decided to kind of read again and kind of like present to the players, and I forgot how fucking racist that thing is. It's so bad.
At
It's
least
both,
this
like-
game doesn't have any
it's both-
racism in it.
Yeah.
It's true. It's man, the original, a lot of Lovecraft stuff has just this very unfortunate thing where you're kind of getting into the setting and stuff like that, and there's just like this awful xenophobic stuff that he seems completely like content with just expressing. It's like, thanks, dude. Fuck.
It's kind of amazing. Yeah, it happened a lot with the old media. Like Gone with the Wind, the original book was one of the worst
Oh,
things.
Christ.
Oh god.
And I mean, like the movie was like very soft racist, but just
It
sort of in
still
the
inherited
background, so
some
you could
issues
enjoy
from it.
everything else. But then you read the book, and
Funny story. At the end of the Gone with the Wind movie, where they're burning all the stuff and riding away, one of the things being burned is the gates from King Kong. They just had it left over at the studio, and they're like, well, we need to burn shit. Fuck, get this. I don't know.
boy,
Let's
we
go.
sure are good at staying on topic.
We got this. So basically, the moral of the story is Shrouded in Sanity is not racist.
Yes. And we can all applaud it for that.
This
There
game
we
is
go.
not racist. Fuck you.
It got the stamp. It's proved.
Yeah.
It's not racist. It doesn't hate black people.
So
Oh,
got
God,
the
I
right
sh-
influences. You got the right influences from H.P. Lovecraft. You got the cool settings and monsters, and none of the racism.
Now, if
Did I
only
know
they
you-
could do something more than the boring video game story.
Pardon?
The boring video game story of you're a cool action man who does the cool thing, and like everyone else is just a person, except for the
Yeah.
big bad guy who did the bad thing,
Yeah.
and then you hurt the bad guy, and that's a story. You're so cool.
Yeah, it did feel pretty bare bones. I like that it tried a little bit to do some of the environmental storytelling that the Souls games are kind of known for. Like, you can see sort of the aftermath of certain things, or infer some stuff based on the paintings in the hallways, or what's blacked out, or some of the descriptions on some of the items.
Yeah.
So it did inherit some of that. It just kind of didn't go all the way for it. I feel like the developer was more so focused on trying to get the gameplay honed and everything.
At
So
least we can agree. It
I can
has
understand
at
cutting
least
that
we can
loss.
At least we can agree it has a much tighter narrative than Deus Ex: Mankind Divided. Topical.
There we go. Man,
Og's
I
lives
think
matter.
I think I said this last episode, but it makes me so sad that people don't play the original Deus Ex, because that game is really good and a lot smarter with how it brings up its themes.
Which is
Despite
amazing.
having some awkward race moments. Man, the 90s were weird. Well, the early 2000s were weird.
Video games.
Yeah.
Video games.
I feel like the story in Shrouded in Sanity, I would have liked it to be... I'm bad at explaining. I feel like it should have picked one main side between reality and weird Lovecraftian stuff, and done one of those kind of mainly with touches of the other, because it's... Man, like I said, I'm really bad at explaining stuff. Because it starts off incredibly magical, like, oh, you're dead and you've been brought back to life to fight a quest with these weird Lovecraftian monsters, and then it ends with your brother killed you and took the throne. This could feasibly happen in a country, really.
Yeah, the whole brother
Yeah.
king stuff is so boring. I
Yeah.
wish they'd done something more interesting.
More magical.
Yeah, I feel like the problem is a lot of it isn't really set up that much and everything.
There are some nice kind of optional things you can find. You can find
That's
like
good.
a hall filled with bodies. Did either of you find the secret boss?
Secret boss, you say?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's when you go full madness.
Yep, you go full insanity.
What does
I
it
did
look
not.
like?
I found something I
Yeah.
think tied to that, but didn't quite have
Low enough.
wasn't quite able to get to
Yeah.
it.
The sanity is kind of weird. It kind of sanity is the one power up. It's power up is a weird way to put it. That it's not explained that well, because you can power up your attacks, and you can buy more syringes, and you can increase your health, and it is. I think everyone has a kind of hilarious. Everyone will have a kind of hilarious subdued reaction when the first time they finally upgrade their health, and it only gives you like 15 more hit points.
Oh yeah,
You're
that
like,
was.
Oh wow, this is really.
You just
gonna
want the
help."
whap 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 to play when you do it. I still can't believe it took me so long to find the sword upgrades. I guess I just wasn't exploring the way I should have, but I'm glad I
yeah.
found it. It was one of those nice things where it felt like it was on me though.
Yeah.
I wasn't like, when I found those upgrade paths and everything, I'm like, oh okay, this is here and I can use this in order to benefit. It wasn't, fuck, you gotta be kidding me.
Took me. I think I beat 2 bosses before I found him, so I felt very stupid. So.
Yeah, I poured a ton into health, but I mean, I guess that made it a little easier in the late game.
But yeah, the weird thing from all the power-ups is that there's this priest outside who just says, "Give me some." Again, it's this Vita stuff. He goes, "Give me this Vita, and I'll give you a blessing." And there isn't really any explanation. And even now, I have no idea what it does.
It gives you
I'm kind of
madness.
curious of that. You find
Gives
some
you madness.
dead body. There you go.
Oh.
But you find some dead bodies in the kind of snowy area of the mansion that have the same sort of like uniform attire and everything. I feel like that might have been something they'd planned to go more into, but maybe had to well, not really had to cut because it's in the game, but wasn't able to develop on as much as they wanted to, because they definitely put it there for a reason, but I feel like there might have been a point that was trying to be made with it that didn't really come across.
Yeah, I think what they were just trying to say is human sacrifices. Bam.
Human sacrifices.
Human sacrifices.
Finger licking good. Oh, too far.
I wanted to say more about this game, but it's kind of hard because, like, I'm normally a narrative-heavy guy, and God, the narrative of this game is so boring. And everything else you can just see the influences of and say, "Yep, that's what that is." It's not like something like Kirby's Epic Yarn, which is so weird and different that I could go on about it for hours.
See, for this one, the reason I brought up Lone Survivor earlier is because I forget if I said this exactly, but with Lone Survivor, I felt like that was a game that was held back by adhering too strictly to its influences, and I feel like this one had a couple hiccups in terms of how it executed on like narrative and story and piecing that kind of stuff together. But I think overall, despite a few little flaws and everything, did a very good job of kind of rising above what it was based on and kind of taking a similar format, something like Bloodborne, etc., throwing in a splash of Resident Evil with the level and map design and everything, and kind of making its own little thing, even though you could very clearly see where each part came from.
I saw something that reminded me of Shovel Knight, and I'm tempted to just not say anything and see if you can tell what it is.
Was it the pickups?
Possibly.
Maybe.
It's the fact that
Well,
when you die, then you lose all of that Vita that you've collected, but you can go back and pick it up again.
Yep.
With
Do the Souls games do that?
Yep.
Oh.
They absolutely do that.
Oh, it's some Dark Souls then. Never mind.
Is Shovel
say
Knight
that
the
Shovel
Dark
Knight is
Souls
the
of
Dark
Citizen
Souls
Kane?
There it
Is
is.
Citizen Kane the Dark Souls of Citizen Kane?
There's
Dark
one joke on
Souls
Twitter,
the
and I
Mike is Dark Souls the Rich Evans being replaced by Dark Souls?
who knows? There is one Twitter joke. I wish I could remember the username of whoever made this, but just put it was the Citizen Kane of times. It was the Dark Souls of times. It's perfect.
I did seriously really like the game, but I scribbled down on a post-it at work because I was very bored one day, just things to say about Shrouded in Sanity, and nearly all of them are just criticism.
I mean, there's definitely room for improvement.
Yeah. If I had to make one change, it would be a pretty kind of simple one. Like I said, if you go into a boss room, you can't leave until you've killed the boss or until you die. But that's not really leaving the room. That's dying.
Yeah.
And there were... I think the only reason I fought the first night for as long as I did is because I had lots of Vita. I went in, got killed, and I thought, if I walk around the mansion and get killed somewhere else, I'm going to lose all of the Vita that's in that room. Because I'm pretty sure you can only have one corpse to find at a time. So I kind of felt locked into the fight where I kept running back, picking up the Vita, trying to kill the boss again, and dying over and over because I didn't want to lose it. But eventually I beat it anyway. So yeah, if I could have one change, if you die in a boss room, maybe let the corpse appear outside the room.
Get good.
I tried.
Get good.
What are you doing? Why don't you just stop dying?
Get good.
Yeah,
I won't tell you how to actually figure out the problem or get better. Just get good. Get good.
My friends hate me
Fucking
because when it comes to
racist
Dark,
epitaph.
but when it
Anime
comes to Dark Souls
avatar.
style, we're stopping this now. But my friends hate me because when it comes to Dark Souls things, I'll either give actual advice like, oh, try taking it slow here, shield up, make sure to be careful of these traps, or etc. Or other times people are like, I'm having trouble with this boss. I'm like, have you tried not getting hit? Have you tried dodging?
Sometimes that's all the advice you can give, you know?
Basically. I'm like, I don't know what else I can say. I can tell you what all the patterns are, but you have to dodge them.
All in all, I'd say this game is definitely on the better end of the solo project style games I've played. This is much closer to something like Downwell than something like In Existence. It's very polished, very well put together, really fun to play. It just feels like it's not as developed as it could have been because the story seriously is so boring. It feels like a waste of potential.
It still has a decent atmosphere.
Oh yeah, it has great
the
atmosphere.
atmosphere side of the story is good, but not the story aspect of the story is not so good.
Yeah,
I feel like that wasn't one of the game's core goals necessarily.
I think if they just left out the plots and changed the king to something else, it'd be a much more satisfying game on the whole. Maybe just have the knight say something cryptic about you, but not actually explain who they are or who you are, and just let you figure it out. That would have been way more rewarding.
I could kind of see that. I think that could also get the point across of sort of the Dark Souls lore, Bloodborne lore, piecing everything together as well.
Plus, if you go that route, you can. It's easier to play with things that way because you don't have to worry about explaining everything to the dumb idiots playing your game. Yeah. And then maybe some of the dumb idiots will get interested and figure it out for themselves and stop being dumb idiots and start being human beings.
Whoa. You can do that? I gotta figure this shit out.
You can do that. I mean, I thought all
You can
you
do
have to
these
do
things?
is just go on message boards and
I
complain about
thought you
women
just had
and
to get
black
good.
people.
I thought you just had to get good. Boy, was I wrong.
Trying
What do
really
you mean?
hard
This has
not to-
nothing to do with. It has nothing to do with red pills.
Oh my god.
Oh god,
Anyways.
the red pill thing is gonna make me laugh till the end of time because now I know both the directors were women.
It's amazing.
Trying really
I
hard
always,
not to...
I always love pointing that out to people, and they're like, "Wow, do they? It's like, do the red pill assholes even pay attention?"
Anyways, what are your summing thoughts?
I like it. The game. I mean,
It's good.
that is what we were talking about. I like it a lot, despite some shortcomings it has in terms of like a little bit of the execution and the narrative stuff. I think it delivers very well on the gameplay, despite a few little tiny nitpicks and everything. But I think overall, what it does very well. I think for the goals that were set out for this project, it meets them fairly decently. I think it's good.
Yeah. Since October's coming up, this and Masochistia are definitely two games to get if you want something short and spoopy. Maybe pick up stuff like Lone Survivor. Home is a really good one. I'm trying to remember who made that one. That's going to bug me all night now. It's a very different type of horror game, I remember that much.
And then you can always download SCP Containment Breach and play it on YouTube and scream loudly.
Yeah.
Or, and
lesser known-
Spooky's House of Jump Scares, or whatever it's called now.
Oh, I love that game.
But not the new Five Nights at Freddy's. Don't.
Oh.
Let it end.
I was about to say, it's a really
I was
obscure
defending it
indie game.
before, guys. I was defending it, but it's time to stop.
It's over.
Aw.
The guy who makes it wants it to stop.
Yeah.
The final boss of the RPG thing that he made for it is literally an author stand-in saying, "Please, I want to fucking stop." Look it up. I'm not even joking.
Yeah, it's basically become Minecraft in that every company in the world is going to drain it of its life until the next big thing comes, and then like 3 years later we'll get a movie like Angry Birds. It'll somehow
Pretty
be really racist and have a message that we should hate all the Muslims. I'm not making that up. That movie is kind of fucked up.
I've heard people mention that.
It's all subtext,
it's so strange
but it's
to me.
really
I mean, yeah,
blatant.
I know, but it seems like a very xenophobic underpinning to it.
Yeah.
And it's kind of one of those things where I'm like, is there any way someone can like put a YouTube clip of this? Because I'm like, really?
Yeah, because
so
no one should
strange.
watch that.
I'm like, I don't want to give money to this, but what the fuck?
Anyways,
It's like a train
I
wreck.
think that sums up our thoughts nicely. What game are we playing next time, Elmo?
Oh, what about my thoughts?
Give
I
your
thought you
I
already
have-
gave them.
I have some long and in-depth thoughts.
Okay, go for it.
Shrouded in Sanity is good.
and the Dark Souls of good.
It's the
No,
Dark
it's
Souls of Sonic Heroes.
There we go. All right, what is our next game?
Well, I'm trying to think of some way to hype it, but I can't. It's the Westport Independent.
All
I
right,
don't know
I'm
if
sorry, the what?
the Westport Independent.
Let me look
looking
that
it
up.
right now. Tell us about the game.
Well, I don't know much about it, but the main reason I'm interested in playing it is because I've heard one person, it's the only time I've heard about it, say that it's a rip-off of Papers, Please. And I'm thinking,
Oh,
how
boy.
do you rip off Papers, Please? Because
I guess we'll find out.
I've looked it up, and it's not a border control immigration thing, but it is a sort of paperwork-based simulator with a lot of strong emotional decisions to make.
Oh, it says it's a censorship simulator taking
Oh,
place in
boy.
a post-war country governed
Oh,
by
this'll
the
be fun.
recently elected Loyalist Party. Oh,
This will
God.
be fun.
The laughs will
Oh.
not stop.
Oh, the reviews are really mixed. That's surprising.
I'm
Yeah.
definitely interested to see then.
That's why I kind of...
Oh, that is a very
Yeah.
Nazi-like symbol right there.
Oh god.
Yikes.
Morality. Property.
I probably should have looked into this a little bit more.
Loyalty.
Eh,
No, this
yeah.
looks like a good one
This
for
definitely
us.
be interesting to talk
Yeah.
about, at least.
Hooray! Yeah.
Nice.
If Shrouded
So
in
we'll see
Sanity-
you. We'll see you next time for the Westport Independence,
Yep.
and after that, I get to pick again. And God help us, I might end up making everyone play a porn game.
No.
I got poo. on
Okay,
me.
I'll make you play a fetish game. There's a difference.
God.
No.
Ah,
No.
damn! Gender bender DNA twisted extreme is still too expensive.
Good.
Oh,
All
we'll
right,
see
good
you
night,
guys
party
next time.
people.
And remember, this podcast was the Dark Souls of
Life.
popular game podcast.